HOA Karen told me that my rose bushes were aggressive was the day I realized she had completely run out of real problems. At first I thought she was joking. Then she handed me an official complaint letter and I knew she was serious. What happened next turned a simple gardening dispute into the most talked about story in our neighborhood. And by the end, even people who had never spoken to me before were stopping to take pictures in front of my house. Before we get started, make sure you like and subscribe to Karen Stories Daily, because this story proves that sometimes the best response to a ridiculous complaint is a little creativity and a lot of patience. My name is Mark and I have lived in the same neighborhood for almost 12 years. I am one of those people who genuinely enjoys gardening. Some people spend weekends watching sports. Some people spend them shopping. I spend mine outside planting, trimming, watering, and taking care of flowers. My pride and joy was a long row of rose bushes running along the front of my property. They were healthy, colorful, and carefully maintained. Every spring they exploded with bright blooms, and people driving through the neighborhood often slowed down to admire them. Most neighbors loved them. One neighbor did not. Her name was Denise. If you have watched Karen Stories Daily for a while, you already know the type. Denise had an opinion about everything: the color of mailboxes, the height of grass, the placement of trash cans, the pile of holiday decorations. Nothing escaped her attention. For years, we mostly ignored each other. I stayed on my property and she stayed on hers. That arrangement worked perfectly until she became vice president of the HOA. The promotion changed her completely. Suddenly, every conversation involved rules. Every discussion involved violations. Every interaction felt like an inspection. One afternoon, I arrived home and found Denise standing on the sidewalk staring at my roses. She was not admiring them. She was studying them. The moment she saw me, she walked over. She pointed directly at the bushes and said they looked aggressive. I honestly laughed because I thought it was a joke. She did not laugh. She explained that the thorns created what she called an intimidating visual environment. I had never heard that phrase before. Apparently, neither had anyone else. I asked her exactly what aggressive landscaping meant. She could not provide a clear answer. Instead, she claimed several residents felt uncomfortable walking near the roses. That surprised me because the bushes sat entirely on my property, more than 10 feet from the sidewalk. Nobody needed to walk near them. The conversation ended with me politely thanking her for the feedback and returning inside. A week later, an HOA letter appeared in my mailbox. According to the notice, my landscaping was under review because multiple complaints had allegedly been submitted. I requested copies. None existed. Then I attended the next HOA meeting. When the issue came up, several board members looked confused. One even admitted he had never received any complaints. Residents in attendance seemed equally puzzled. Many of them actually complimented the roses. The discussion should have ended right there. Instead, Denise kept pushing. Over the following month, she continued bringing up the bushes whenever possible. She described them as hostile. She described them as threatening. At one point, she actually called them emotionally unwelcoming. That phrase became a running joke throughout the neighborhood. People started greeting each other by asking whether their gardens were emotionally welcoming enough. Even with all the jokes, Denise refused to let the issue go. One Saturday morning, she approached me again while I was trimming branches. She suggested replacing the roses with something friendlier. I asked what she considered friendlier. She pointed toward a picture of decorative animal-shaped shrubs in a gardening magazine. The moment she showed me the image, an idea formed in my mind. At first, it was just a funny thought. Then the more I considered it, the more I liked it. A few days later, I contacted a professional topiary artist from a nearby town. I explained the situation. He laughed so hard he nearly dropped the phone. Then he told me he had always wanted to work on a project like this. Over the next several weeks, we developed a plan. The existing roses would remain. Nothing would be moved. Nothing would violate HOA rules. Instead, the bushes would be carefully trained and shaped using hidden support frames. The design would transform the entire row into something impossible to ignore. When construction began, neighbors became curious. People slowed their cars. Families stopped to watch. Children asked questions. Nobody knew exactly what was being built, not even Denise. She spent days trying to figure it out. Every morning she walked past the property looking more confused than the day before. The project moved slowly because we wanted it done properly. The artist was incredibly talented. Every branch was positioned carefully. Every section was shaped with precision. By the time the framework started becoming visible, the neighborhood buzz had reached another level. People talked about it during walks. They discussed it during HOA meetings. Some residents even placed friendly bets on what the final result would be. Meanwhile, Denise seemed increasingly nervous. I think she expected me to remove the roses completely. Instead, she watched them evolve into something much larger. One afternoon, she finally approached me and asked directly what I was building. I smiled and told her she would see soon enough. That answer did not make her happy. As spring arrived, the roses began blooming again. Bright red flowers covered the structures. The transformation accelerated. Shapes that once looked like random frames suddenly started resembling something recognizable. Children noticed first. Then parents noticed. Soon everyone knew exactly what the project was becoming. And once the final details were completed, the entire neighborhood gathered to see the finished result with their own eyes. The reaction was even better than I imagined. 3 giant smiling teddy bears stood proudly across my front yard. Each one was covered in blooming roses. Their faces looked cheerful. Their paws were raised in friendly poses. And from the street they looked absolutely incredible. Cars lined the road. People took photographs. Visitors came from neighboring communities. The teddy bears became an unexpected attraction almost overnight. The funniest part was that the same rose bushes Denise called aggressive were now being praised by everyone as the most welcoming landscaping feature in the entire neighborhood. For the first time since this strange dispute began, Denise seemed completely speechless. But what happened after the teddy bears became famous created a much bigger problem for her than she ever expected. Within a few weeks, the teddy bear rose garden became one of the most photographed spots in the area. Families stopped by during evening walks. Kids wanted pictures beside the giant smiling bears. Even people from neighboring communities came to see them after photos started spreading online. What made the situation even funnier was that property values in our section of the neighborhood actually started getting positive attention because of the unique landscaping. Residents who had never spoken to me before stopped to compliment the project. Several local gardening clubs even asked if they could feature the roses in their newsletters. Meanwhile, Denise looked more frustrated every day. She had spent months claiming the bushes were aggressive. Now hundreds of people were calling them beautiful. At the next HOA meeting, she tried one final time to complain. She argued that the teddy bears were attracting too much attention. The room immediately filled with laughter. Several residents reminded her that she was the person who originally suggested friendlier landscaping. One board member even pulled up the meeting notes where she had recommended decorative animal-shaped shrubs. The moment those notes were read aloud, the entire room went quiet. Then people started smiling. Denise realized she had accidentally inspired the very project she was trying to stop. After that meeting, the complaints disappeared. The board officially confirmed that the landscaping followed every HOA rule. No violations, no fines, no restrictions. The matter was closed. Over the following months, the teddy bears became a neighborhood landmark. Holiday decorations were added during special occasions. Residents took family photos there. Local charities even used the location during community events. What started as a ridiculous complaint turned into something that brought people together. The biggest lesson was simple. Not every problem needs an argument. Sometimes the best response is creativity. Instead of fighting with Denise, I took her criticism and turned it into something positive. Years later, the giant smiling teddy bears are still there. The roses are healthier than ever. Visitors still stop for pictures. And every time someone asks how the idea started, I cannot help but laugh. Because the entire thing happened after one HOA Karen looked at a row of flowers and decided they were somehow aggressive. If you enjoyed this story from HOA Stories Daily, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, and share. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done if someone complained that your rose bushes looked too aggressive?